Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is Anthony. Last time we were here, we put the wheel spacers on the wheels just to space out the wheels so we can clear the calipers. So today what we're going to do is we're going to install the engine drop kit so that the axles don't have axle wobble once we lift the vehicle. And then after that, we'll go ahead and put all of the spacers on the front and rears to lift up the vehicle. So let's get started. First thing you want to do is you want to pop the hood, obviously. Then you're going to have to remove the air box on the right side, just so you can get access to those motor mounts. So I'll show you. This is the kit we got. This is a 1-inch drop kit, or level 2 drop kit from Aerogenics. And basically what this is going to do is it's going to lower the motor mounts and then also drop the subframe an inch. And that will make it so that the axles don't have too severe of an angle to go into the wheel hubs. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to start on the left side, and these two are you're going to remove this bolt right here, this nut right here, and then this bolt. Make sure that you support the engine underneath. I'll show you that in a second, but basically you're just going to put a jack and then a piece of 2x4 underneath it just to support underneath the oil pan so the engine doesn't just fall out the engine bay. But we'll go ahead and get that started. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take off this 10mm bolt for the crown screw. That's, you see right there, and that's going to be a wire coming off that. That's just a ground wire to ground the engine mount. Get my body. What? So next we're gonna take the 17mm bolt out on top. So make sure that you have the engine supported underneath, and you can look underneath. You got that 2x4 with the jack underneath, just to support the motor, since your motor mounts are gonna be removed. So the next part, we'll probably take the other 17mm bolts out. So that is this one. And we should be all right to put the spacer underneath it. Things really fit.
Try that American.
I'm gonna use this. Hopefully it doesn't strip it. Yeah. The mating surface, just so it has a good mating surface. So I'm just gonna wire brush it real quick. But basically, what we're gonna do is this bolt right here is gonna be replaced with these provided by Aerogenics, and so that's gonna go into that one. And then what we're gonna have is we're gonna have a spacer going underneath, and then a spacer going on top of this right there. And so that's gonna drop the engine an inch. So we'll go ahead and do that and show you what it looks like afterwards. So as you can see, we have the spacer underneath, that's both sides. And we have the replacement bolt on this side right here. So I'm just gonna tighten all these down. The torque spec for these two bolts or two nuts is 45 foot-pounds. So I'm gonna go ahead and torque those down to 45 foot-pounds. And then we're gonna move on to the right side. All right, so the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna take out the intake box. The directions say for this kit, you can either take out the intake or the battery. I think taking out the intake probably the easiest. It'd make it easier to actually get to the actual thing, or transmission mounts.
So you remove this hose, you take off the air intake hose. There's a bolt here, a bolt here, and then underneath this cap right here is another bolt.
They're all 10 millimeters.
They're all 10 millimeter, and we'll remove that now. So there's also a lower hose underneath here that's connected to the box. So to get to that, we're gonna go ahead and take the top off. So there's a screw here, 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 and one on the other side, and one right here. Now those are 8 millimeters, and then we'll get the top off. All right, so we got the cover off where the air filter is at. So this hose right here, it looks like it'll pop off. It's just wrapped around that. So we're gonna, to give us even more space in here, we're gonna go ahead and take the battery out. So it was easier just to take off the bottom hose that was connected to the bottom of the air intake box. So now we have full access now to our studs and the transmission mount. So that's what we'll be putting our spacers. So as you can see, these studs are pretty rusted that we got to get to. So I'm gonna go ahead and put some PV blaster on there to try to make sure we don't have any issues getting access to these, getting these bolts off. So let's just, we raised the motor back proper position, and now we're gonna go ahead and take the first bolt off. So with the Aerogenics drop kit, it actually comes with a special nut driver that's specifically designed to go over these studs. It gives you the extra length so you can get to the nut. So we'll go ahead and use that now. It is on there tight with that rust. So we're gonna try to let it penetrate a little bit more. So that nut is so seized that when we nut dried it off, the nut stayed on the stud. This is not supposed to come out of here. So we got to let this penetrate and get that thing off of there. You need to get that nut off there, so because that's where the spacer goes, right here.
So next, after we take these 3 nuts out, the 2 nuts and then the bolt, we're gonna take the 3 bolts that go into this other part of the motor mount or transmission mount. So we're gonna take this nut, this bolt down here, and then there's a bolt over here, and you can see it right there, and those 3 bolts, so we can put the spacer underneath it.
So now we're putting the pointed stud back in because they came out. They really should have not come out, but because the nut was rusted onto the pointed stud, the whole thing came out. But now we're getting it back on there.
So we had to use a channel lock, or not a channel lock. What's it called?
Vice grip.
Vice grip. You had to use a vice grip to get hold the stud down so you could get the nut off with the impact. And then I used the 2 nuts that we have to lock up the stud. So we were able to just tighten those down to torque.
Now we're gonna get the other one on. So now the motor mount's off, we can go ahead and put the spacers. There's one here that goes over this stud. This one you're just gonna set, get it ready, and then this one over there. Now we'll go ahead and set the motor mount back.
And then we're going to replace the bolt that we had on there before, which is this one, with the provided bolts.
The new provided bolt.
So that's
just longer.
That's going to go into the threaded hole.
Of course, your motor's still suspended from underneath, and now we'll have to lower the motor after we get the bolts and nuts back on. So now we're gonna to lower the engine, we went ahead and put some jack stands to hold the car up while we can then use the jack to support the engine as we lower the subframe, because the subframe is holding up the engine. So now we're So the kit comes with 4 subframe bolts that are longer than the original. Here's the original bolts on the subframe. And so what you do is replace them with the longer ones so that we can put our spacers in. Once you have all 4 replaced, then you're now ready to lower the engine an inch to put in the spacers. So now we're, as you can see, replacing the subframe bolt. Here's the first location on the front. These are 22mm bolts, and there's one on this side right there. So we'll get that one bolted in, and then there's 2 in the back, which we'll show you back here. So the other subframe bolt is right there. See where that is? And we're replacing the other side. So then you gotta put the new longer bolts in these 2 new locations. There's right there. So now we're putting the spacer in the subframe, between the subframe and the frame. So we're gonna create the space.
Stop slipping.
To create that space, we got to lower the engine now. So we just lowered it, and that will now create a space on your to get your spacer in, as you can see there. And now we're getting the bolt inserted up through the spacer, which is now between the subframe and the frame. And you do that on all 4 bolts. We're getting the last spacer in between the subframe and the frame. Go ahead and stick that new bolt in there.
I don't know if it's not lined up yet.
Okay.
To get it over a little bit.
So you can use a little pry bar to help you maneuver things a little. Give you just enough space to move space around and get that bolt up. So everything's bolted back on tight, about 47 foot-pounds. You just put the air filter box and the battery back in, and you're done for the dropping kit, the motor drop kit. Now that the motor's dropped, we can do the 3-inch lift, and that'll be on our next episode. So thanks for watching. See you next time.
So the most important part is that you put this ground screw back, and you want to make sure that you put it without this part. So you don't want to put this ground wire on it, and you do not want to put this back on. as you can clearly see me doing right now. That's just so that your stuff explodes whenever you're driving down the road.
So your stuff doesn't explode?
No, it does.
You want it to
You
explode?
don't want to put the ground screw on, so it does explode. So then you get a brand new car from insurance company. I'm just kidding. Of course. Don't make my racing for expensive. Feel free to ask them in the comments.
Feel free to contact me.
All right, so
Have a great day.